I mean, that's what we got. That's what I mean. Naturally, I've noticed amongst Filipinos that's kind of the common trend. Even if they don't know each other and they're like in a different, especially if they're in a different country, they're like Filipino, Filipino. We're brothers now.
We bond through blood.
Welcome everybody. This is the daily recap here, day number 2 of the M5 World Championship group stages. Here with me today, my name is GideonQ, and this is Midnight. Where can they find you, Midnight?
You can find me in the venue, but also you can find me somewhere else. But also in social media at MDNYT97. That's for Facebook, Twitter, X, and Instagram.
Just social social swipe. Yep. With that being said, we're gonna do the daily recap, and all we're gonna do is kind of talk about the games that actually happened. You casted a majority of the games on the Tagalog broadcast. In case you guys are wondering, who is this guy? Why didn't I see him on the English broadcast? And well, he was on the Tagalog broadcast, and that's why. You know, solves all the comment section who is just like, I didn't see this guy.
And the PH Wolf. Nobody can be Wolf.
Dude, that's so funny.
Nobody can be Wolf.
Oh, he's so funny. I'm the PH Wolf. All
Although
right.
we have the same leg though.
That's actually true. Let's talk about some of the games that we got to see today. Do you want to do it in order or do you want to do it based on group?
It depends on you, bro.
Depends on me.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do it on order based off of my memory. If I can get this right. So the first game of today, we got to see TOB versus Day2. So the Ohio Brothers versus Deus. Vult. I want to get your thoughts about this because this was a full 3-game series. Here's the draft in case you need that. In case you don't remember it. I think it was one of those moments where this was like by far one of the most important matches of Group D.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this match showed the level of importance of XP laners. Like Melo for TOB really, brought in a lot of impact for their games. It was just unfortunate that we only saw like 2 heroes in the XP lane, the Trizla and the Edith. But it did like prove a point where if you have a decent XP laner and he's amazing, he can actually carry games.
Do you play? Are you an EXP laner by heart?
I'm a flex hero. Flex player.
Did you ever main the EXP lane?
I did. I've been maining.
So you get it. Okay. So you understand that in the meta right now, it's so demanding.
Oh, yeah.
They give you, they force all this useless. Well, I don't say it's not useless, but like so
spells,
much responsibility just so that you can get the team like flowing. Like you have to be the oil and you need to make the impact.
And it's not just the XP; it's also the roam. And I think that's why it's also important to highlight Shark in TOB because in that game he forced a lot of stuff from Deus Vult. Like game number 1, game number 2, it showed that there's a really significant importance in EXP and roaming around map, forcing a lot of stuff from your enemies. Shit.
It's past the 30-second mark, so we can. It's past the 30-second, we can swear.
If you're able to force a lot of shit, early game is gonna be easy for you.
Dude, I mean, like, okay, so it's game 1 Deus Vult, game 2 TOB, and then after that, game 3 Deus Vult. What do you think was the big turning point here, right? Because for me, personally, I think that, like, game number 3 is one of those, like, man, I wish I didn't have to see that. Because it got to the point where Sawo, he's not dying, he's dealing mega damage with these auto alarm bombs. What
150k damage on Diggy, by the way. And I think TOB only won because of Melo and best player is Fanny. Game number 2. It was just easy as that. Like they won the draft, they won the execution, they were able to win early game because of Shark and Melo. But game 3, it was different. The Diggy became a huge factor. And I feel like you have to give out so much respect to Diggy if you want to pick up the Guinevere.
Oh, for sure. So much so. And then we got to see that later on today, actually, with a couple of bans that actually came on through. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But I think that especially for the 3rd game of Deus Vult versus the Ohio Brothers, right? It really boils down to like the communication. The communication is like, oh, everything is like communicated well. But then where do you find the time to start evolving the ideas? Because they did the same exact engage multiple times, and Hoon was using all of his abilities while the time journey completely countered it.
Although Hoon did play amazing in that game, it was just unfortunate that he was target banned by Deus Vult, like removed the entirety of Hoon's hero pool. But again, I really want to point out the communication thing that you were talking about, like the amount of replicability from Deus Vult's perspective. It was amazing to see. Like every single team fight, it was like drawing a blueprint and following every step along the way.
A lot of good structure. I was just hoping that TOB might have learned, like, yes, best players finding good, like really good engages. All you got to do is expect the time Germany to come out. So therefore, just wait just a couple more seconds to punish with the gush.
Yeah,
Like,
and they really have a bad record with Guinevere, man.
they
I don't
do.
know why, but TOB and Guinevere, it's not like they're not good friends.
I don't know. Weird, awkward ex relationship. I don't know what to say about that. But then we move on to to the second series of the day. That was
Burmese Ghouls and Team Flash.
Yes, Burmese Ghouls and as well as Team Flash. Now this one was kind of interesting, right? Because again, I was expecting the Burmese Ghouls to actually have a leg up on Team Flash, and for some reason, as soon as like Cheryl, the host from MPL SG, came on over, one interview later,
buff, right?
Yeah, and then the reverse sweep. What the heck? Why did?
I mean, curses are a thing. Like there's no scientific explanation for it, but things happen, and we don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, I don't know how to explain it as well because again, it felt like game 2 and 3, Adamir was smurfing, bro.
Oh yeah. Like, dude, again, EXP really important. That Khalid, you guys, I heard somebody mentioned it during the cast. It was like he was looking for kills. But then in a split second, he's looking now for double kills.
Yeah.
Adamir at some point was just trolling with his enemies.
What? I can't remember the timing, but I remember it was happening in the mid lane where he was like,
it was against a purple buff.
Yeah, it was by the purple buff.
Yeah,
and then he
against
goes
Nico.
for the alt, and then he flicked
It out.
Yeah,
it was like,
the second
okay,
guy.
that guy's dead. Okay, there's another guy here.
And the thing is that the timing is very strict for the flicker alt, right?
Yeah.
You can't do it once you're like at the end of the animation because then it just sticks there in your animation block. You can't do anything. So somehow he made that like millisecond of a difference to catch the second guy.
And also, I would like to point out, like, Hades as a jungler is better than Nico. That's a hot take, by the way.
Take.
I feel like Burmese Ghouls has to like protect their jungler or get him in a very comfortable hero. We saw him play like the Nolan. He was very good at it.
Oh, yeah.
But when it came down to the typical junglers like Guinevere, the Martis, Hades was diffing this guy.
Yeah, he really was. Especially when he's finding these like, for example, like we know that Martis' mortal coils give him like CC immunity, and Guinevere's like spatial migration is like, oh yeah, that's quote unquote CC. But he gets it. He knows the timing to a T, right? As soon as the animation just stops,
Always hits.
Wham!
Always hits on point, and also the adjustment, man. He went for a hybrid build. It was like, okay, if I'm not gonna hit the shit, might as well punch you in the face.
Might as well just go.
Yeah, there you go. It's a solution. The adjustments coming out from Team Flash really did prove that their composure is off next level. And I feel like I have to address the elephant in the room. Like the thing that happened with RSG after that, it almost broke Team Flash, but they came back game 7, and this gives you an idea of how composed this team is. They had a hard game 1. Game 2, game 3 was different. It looked like game 1 didn't exist at all.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And it just helped that, game 3, Adamir's Arlet was just so much finesse, so much smurfing in that one. Oh. Well, we move on to another. This one, I think, it's not that it was disappointing. I think it was pretty unlucky. It was See You Soon versus BTR Suns. This is one of the matchups where I feel like, because BTR Suns, they take a lot of inspiration from Blacklist International's M3 roster, the Ube, the way that they play is very, not really chemistry based, but very structured and team oriented. And then you have See You Soon, who is just like, if you're not gonna stop us, we're just gonna keep going.
Mega, right? Mega, like Execution, 2019, 2020.
Oh yeah.
See You Soon plays like them, and I feel like that type of team you cannot play. You cannot play the typical Ube strategy against, because you saw how like See You Soon just broke the identity of BTR Suns, and I also think that the draft needs to be refined for BTR Suns.
Actually, I think game number 2, the draft was like so close.
Yeah, it was okay.
Then Florin happened. Like why? I feel like teams, especially when you're up against hyper aggressive Myanmar teams or even like Cambodian teams, it's one of those things where they're gonna keep disrespecting you until you kind of put them in their place and force them to be like, you have to like respect us. You have to not do some dumb stuff.
My core was shaken when I saw the Florin. Like, how the F do you play Florin into Kaja and Kadita? We have this thing in PH called Grind My Gears. It's my thing whenever I see like shit drafts or shit picks. Florin was in the same category, right? Like when I saw the Florin pick, I know that okay, this cast is done. I'm just gonna sit through the early to mid.
The pain.
See you soon will just break the game of Bozizio, and it did. Like Bozizio was not having fun in
was
that game
not.
at all. Like he was not able to play MLBB.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see that at least for South America, there's like quite a it's especially for game ones because we're going to be talking about another Brazilian team, right?
Yeah.
A lot of lane focus initially,
Yeah.
right? Before you start thinking like, okay, how do the lanes kind of once we're done with the lane phase, how do we start thinking about the bigger team fights,
Yeah.
the bigger pictures, which I feel is like a secondary thought.
Yeah, that's true. Because I think for like BDR Sons, they have this idea of how to deal with certain heroes, how to deal with certain matchups. Because game number one, it reflected when they picked up the box shot. Okay,
Yeah.
there's an idea behind it. It's a good hero to deal with the Nolan when it comes to sustainability.
Yeah.
But the main problem is you have to broaden your perspective, right? You have to look at the bigger picture, the macro objectives, the mid game to late game. How do you transition from mid to late? Because if you bring in heroes like the Basha Phobius. And then, looking into the hero pool of See You Soon, there is a Kaja and Kadita on their playing pool. You know what? What's funny? I ended up predicting the entirety of lineup of See You Soon.
yeah, I've heard,
Just because of the
yes.
fact that I know their hero pool and I know how they would want to play against both the Baksha and the Phobius. Kaja was on top of the list.
Exactly.
And I feel like BTR Sons not respecting the Kaja cost them that series.
Personally, for me, I really feel that like teams need to go through that phase of like self-identity. You know,
yeah.
they need to be able to draft for themselves initially to see what they like, and then eventually adapt it towards
Yeah.
somebody. But it felt like in this one, it was immediately okay. The mindset is counter drafting. Mindset is always like counter draft, and then it's
Yeah.
like okay. We've already lost game number one. Let's go to comforts, right? That's usually how teams, professional teams, end
It's
up
the
going.
psychology. You know?
Yeah, it's the psychology of it. Like if it was a best of five, you would expect it like game three onwards. For best of three, it's like as soon as you lose that first one,
Yeah.
you're immediately reverting to comfort picks. Which brings us to our next Brazilian representative, right? We saw See You Soon versus BTR Sons, but then we saw Blacklist International
Oh, dude, that
versus
That
versus
series, man.
RRQ Akira. They haven't updated it just yet, but based off of like pure memory, we literally just watched it just now, right? I think honestly, when people were saying that like, oh, BTR Sons, they're always coming in second place. It's understandable why. Like RRQ
Yeah.
Akira is
Leagues
clearly
above.
clearly on a different level.
Yeah, I mentioned this during the cast. Like, if you watch MPL Brazil, it looked like RRQ Akira is 2 seasons ahead, or maybe even 3 seasons ahead over BTR Sons. It showed in how they drafted in both game 1 and game 2. Like, they have this full understanding of how Blacklist lineup works and how they're supposed to play around it. It's just unfortunate that game number 1, Edward kind of like destroyed the game with the Benedetta. Game number 2, however, was close as fuck.
It's so close. See, when I was doing the analysis of it, right, it really just boiled down to like how many things are you letting loose, you know?
Yeah.
And, like how much do you commit to something, and then you realize like, oh no, I've been leaving my spare change on the side, and
Yeah.
Edward is just like,
Yeah.
he's just taking it.
We were saying the same thing. Like, RRQ Akira saw Blacklist's game number 1. Okay, Edward's not trading towers because he's an Edith. You're supposed to like stick with your roles, but the amount of the things that you're losing, it has to like counterbalance the thing that you're getting. That's how Blacklist took game number 1, in a very dominating fashion, because Blacklist didn't care about the Benedetta at all. They locked him in with the Edith pick coming out from Edward. Game number 2 was totally different. Like,
Oh, yeah.
RRQ Akira was playing for objectives. When they picked up the Akai, I was like, okay, that's a fucking good pick, because now you're not allowing Blacklist to win these micro objectives, and you also have ways to deal with the Benedetta of Edward. When they picked up the Grok, I remembered instantly, okay, Echo did the same exact thing. They picked up the Grok against the Benedetta. It's supposed to provide you superior team fight, but also you're not gonna care about the split of the Benedetta, because if he goes away,
Yes.
fucking
Proxy.
4v5.
Yep. That's one way. I mean, you proxy, then go in for the 4v5. I mean, there's a lot of like good solutions here coming in from RRQ Akira. And I think the one thing that I'm very proud of RRQ Akira, especially like game number 1, I feel like throwaway game, right? Because it felt too structured. They were very like
Oh, yeah.
tunnel vision on
Yeah.
certain plays.
It's structure versus structure.
Yeah.
It just so happened that Blacklist.
It's just, I feel like at least for Blacklist, they read the structure and it's just like, well, if they're going to keep doing the exact same thing, this is so punishable,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Like every neutral
They're
objective.
more experienced with that level of structure.
Exactly. We're just like, Takashi comes in and he's like, okay, Electo final blow every single time to
Yep.
like trying to like disrupt the calculations for the jungler. And it's just like, Sensui's like,
So what?
Okay, stun the jungler. Take
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Every single time. But game number 2, I was so happy to see like RRQ Akira.
Everyone is.
Yeah, the way that they played, right? The recovery in certain moments, the way that they were looking for big punish. They came to a point where they're making Blacklist International make mistakes. Like when Yue was getting chunked out, and then Renegade had to come walk over to his side to top him up, and then all of a sudden Sensui is just like, yeah, I should be okay. Gets locked down.
Yeah. Dude, Blacklist playing their signature Ubi style and you forcing them to play 30 minutes of the game. Well, when was the last time we saw that, right? Like when Blacklist gets their comfort heroes and when they pick up the SS, they know that it's a good SS game. And I feel like Sagan and King did so much in the last game, especially the Novaria, even though sometimes the Star Shadow doesn't hit, like
Yeah.
important and crucial targets. But the fact of the matter is the level of adjustment that they were able to do in that game. He was like, okay, y'all frontliners, stop frontlining versus the Lilia. Let me do your thing. Takashi focused on using the wild charge onto the right targets, and Blacklist was forced into a corner where they had to win the team fight in a perfect way. And I even mentioned this during the cast, like Edward had to hit that electrifiable petrify onto the Brody for them to actually have this condition where they can say, okay, we can now win the fight.
And he had 3 strikes technically.
He had 3 strikes.
The first one, it was just like, okay, that was kind of weird. The second one, you saw the movement, right?
Dude, that was in the base, right?
Yeah,
That was in the base.
He was like,
"Whoa, electrify!" Oh wait, Brody's outside.
and then finally the third one where it actually
yeah.
connected. Yeah.
He even bought Blade of Despair. He was like, I'm sick of this shit.
I'm tired of it.
I'll try my best to kill you.
Well, thank you for giving me your opinions on this, Midnight. I really appreciate you coming on for the daily recap. Tell the audience once again where they can find you on social media.
All right, you can find me in the Philippines on Facebook, Twitter, X, and Instagram at MDNYT97. By the way, huge shout out to my idol GideonQ. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on to the daily recap. We'll catch you up at another time. That's the daily recap. We'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.